I still believe dentistry is a profession where you can have all three, but it takes work. And I think that is where the disconnect is in terms of expectations and reality. I think a lot of people go into dentistry expecting to work really hard, right? To get into dental school, and then you come out and you're expecting, oh, everything's gonna be great once I'm a dentist. But it's still a grind. And then it's funny because you look at it and that's literally how it is for everything else. And then so it really makes you question. It's like, okay, like my thing is like, I wish someone just told me. Like, I wish somebody just said, hey, it is going to be a grind. You're going to have to work at it. There is a path to do it, but it's not going to just happen.
Well, hello, beautiful friends of the universe. Welcome back to the University of Why, a podcast where we get to explore the core motivations behind our choices, the purpose behind our pursuits, and the beliefs that shape who we truly are. I'm your host, Dr. Sonia Chopra, and today we are going to talk to yet another dentist. Yes, that is my world right now. And one day I will expand beyond that. But I am really interested in understanding the why behind why some dentists stop dentisting. I've spoken about it before. My career has been probably one of the biggest aspects of my life that I put a lot of my time and energy in. And so I'm just super curious about why we do what we do when it comes to our career. So, my next guest is somebody who I connected with. Again, met him at a conference, really connected with him on so many levels. He is also a dentist who started a side hustle. He teaches clear aligners as opposed to me. I teach root canals. And I connect with him on a cultural aspect too, because he's Indian American, just like myself. And so we had a very similar upbringing. So if you're Indian American, or maybe just not, your parents are of a different country, they maybe immigrated here or something like that, this might relate to you as well. But Dr. Avi Patel is a beautiful friend of mine becoming deeper by the day. He is a dentist who has transitioned to become one of the leading voices in clear aligner education. He is the founder of Clear Aligner Advisor, where he's helped over 200 dentists across the US and Canada confidently integrate aligners into their practices to drive revenue, save time, and find more fulfillment. Known for his relatable, no fluff teaching style, which I freaking love because that's how I like to teach endo. Dr. Avi is also the most followed aligner educator on social media and was named Dentist Influencer of the Year in 2024. I chose Dr. Avi to speak to because, again, he's stopped dentisting. And I'm really curious why people do that because I was terrified to let go of my dentisting side of things. Now, I have truly, truly enjoyed it because I feel like I'm really good at it and I love doing root canals. But I'm beginning to get a lot more curious as to what life would be like if I stopped dentisting. So, I'm always curious as what goes into the mindset behind making this choice. So I really hope that you enjoy this next episode with Dr. Avi Patel. Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the podcast, The University of Why. I'm your host, Dr. Sonia Chopra, and I'm here with my dear friend, Dr. Avi Patel. How are you today, Avi?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm great. Thanks for being here with us today.
Yeah, I'm excited. When you reached out and you told me about this venture, I was very honored to be chosen, but I'm also super excited because I love the title and name of the podcast and I love the reasoning behind it and I'm super excited to dive in with you.
Well, thanks for being here. So I love finding people that I feel like I connect with on certain levels. And I'm just going to tell people how we met. We were at a Dental Nachos conference, and I believe you reached out to me beforehand. We kind of do similar things. I created a course on root canals, and you've created a course on clear aligners. And for those non dentists who are listening to this podcast, clear aligners are basically Invisalign, right? Am I right? Because I don't really do
Yep.
any of that. But you help dentists learn how to use clear aligners for their patients, and I help dentists do root canals on their patients. So we're very aligned in that sense, and that we are entrepreneurial dentists, and we're both of Indian descent. So we connect on many, many levels, and I love that. And I want to talk about all those things today. But tell us a little bit about yourself. Let's bring the audience up to speed about who you are, where you came from, how you got into dentistry, and where you are now.
Yeah, so going all the way back, was born in California, grew up in Jacksonville, Florida, did undergrad in Orlando, moved up to New York for dental school at NYU, went to, yeah, practiced up in the Northeast, and then we moved down here to Austin, and then now we're moving back to New York. So that's the geographical breakdown. So I've kind of hit a bunch of major states.
Where's your family?
My parents are in Jacksonville, Florida.
Nice. So you've been all around.
Yeah, and I think just all of that has given me just a lot of perspective growing up. I know we'll probably dive into it later, but it's definitely been a journey in terms of being in different neighborhoods, exposed to different types of people, positives and pros and cons that come with that. But yeah, why dentistry? So I originally wanted to be a basketball player when I was in middle school. That was I thought I was destined for the NBA, honestly. I was 5'10", one of the tallest kids in middle school on the basketball team. Favorite players, Kobe Bryant. And I just didn't see a reality where I wasn't going to be in the NBA. And then I get to high school, and then I go from being one of the tallest to one of like the shortest. And yeah, it became very clear that I was not going to be going to the NBA because I just wasn't as good, also as everybody else. And honestly, I wasn't as dedicated to it. I wasn't practicing as much as I probably should have. But that's when I decided to give in to what my parents were always saying, which was to be a dentist, doctor, lawyer, one of the big three, or engineer even. But my uncle was a dentist, and he was someone whenever we would hang out, he lived in New York, but anytime that he was at family events, he was probably one of the happiest people that I remember. I just always remember there being a lot of positive energy coming off of him. And so I was always kind of just drawn to him in that way. And he told me that, he loved being a dentist. And I was like, all right, maybe I need to check this out. And so I went to shadow him for a summer, and I saw everything. I saw the way he lived. I saw the way he works. I saw the way he kind of was able to make a difference in patients. And so I kind of come back to this, like what drew me in to dentistry was this concept of time, money, and fulfillment. And he embodied that. So he was working a couple days a week. So he had a lot of control over his time. He vacationed with his family multiple times a year. He made good money, had a nice house, and I saw him like patients would come into his clinic in pain with something going on, and he would be able to, do a procedure on them and help them and transform them. And so, yeah, I thought that was always really cool. But really, what put the solidifying kind of aspect on me choosing dentistry was when I was shadowing him for that summer. He had a dinner party, all of his friends were over. Everyone was having a good time. And then one of his friends was talking to me. His friend was a neurosurgeon. And so he's just, I think I was like 16 or 17 at the time. And he was like, trying to just talk to me about career stuff and which path I wanted to go down. And at that time, I kind of got down to like, I wanted to either do sports med or dental. He's like, well, you have to make a choice. You have to decide, are you going to go to medical school or dental school? And then we were talking about it, and then at the time, I kinda saw him, and I'm like, "Why aren't you hanging out with everybody else? Like, why are you, like, just here talking to me?" He's like, "Oh, I'm on call." So and I'm like, "Oh, yeah, I don't want to do that when I'm your age." I was like, that is honestly the when the light bulb went off, I was like, "Yeah, I think I'm gonna go to dental school," 4 years instead of the 8 and all that. And I also am not a big fan of hospitals, so yeah, the dominoes started to fall, but that is ultimately what got me into it. And I think kind of the draw here, the more I reflect on it, is I was drawn to the lifestyle or the perceived lifestyle that dentists have, of having time, money, and fulfillment. So yeah, that's kind of what got me into it.
It's amazing. See, I have the opposite mindset with my kids. I would love it if my son was an NBA player. I want to be that mom in the stands that like, that's my boy. That's my boy. Yeah. So I'm kind of pushing him in that direction because I don't want him to go into medicine. But we'll see what happens. I have a feeling he might end up being a YouTuber or something. Who knows?
There you go.
I
There
don't
you
know
go.
this generation, right? Well, that's interesting. The time, money, and fulfillment was your driver to go into dentistry. Yeah, dentistry can be a cush life. It can be if you do things, I guess, I don't know if right is the right way to say that, but there is a way to make that happen. Now, what's your perspective?
Well, that's the thing is when I got out of dental school, I got a heavy dose of reality of what it's like to be a dentist in the beginning. And you don't have time. I was working 6 days a week. You don't have money. I had $500,000 of student debt. And you in the beginning, there's not that what is advertised as fulfillment is not really there. I mean, I was working in several practices. A lot of patients really didn't care what I was doing when I'm doing fillings. You know, some Medicaid offices, yeah, sure, you'd have patients that were extremely grateful for me being able to treat them. But then you also get a lot of patients that don't want to be there. They don't like dentists. They don't want anything to do with what you're doing. And so, yeah, reality was the exact opposite. And so I was kind of just like, what the heck did I get myself into?
Yeah.
Um, and to your point, what you said is I still believe dentistry is a profession where you can have all three, but it takes work. And I think that is where the disconnect is in terms of expectations and reality. I think a lot of people go into dentistry expecting to work really hard, right? To get into dental school, in dental school, and then you come out and you're expecting, oh, everything's gonna be great once I'm a dentist. But it's still a grind. And then it's funny because you look at it and that's literally how it is for everything else. And then so it really makes you question. It's like, okay, like my thing is like, I wish someone just told me. Like, I wish somebody just said, hey, it is going to be a grind. You're going to have to work at it. There is a path to do it, but it's not going to just happen. Um, yeah. And I've posted a lot of content around that topic, and that resonates with a lot of dentists all over the world.
I do think things have changed over time. You know, even for me, when I graduated 23 years ago now, 22 years ago, I felt like things were different and then I opened my own practice 16 years ago. And that was, it was different then than it is now for people graduating. So I wonder, I don't think your uncle just got lucky. I do think times have changed a little bit.
He also what I didn't see was how hard he was grinding in the beginning. I mean, he moved from Zimbabwe or from Zambia, went to dental school and like immediately started practicing, opened his practice. So that's the thing, right? Is I didn't see that. There was no
Right.
documenting of that
Right.
like you get these days. And he eventually told me when I was kind of in the grind and I would kind of talk to him about it, and he's just like, yeah, man, this is it. And I'm like, well, I wish you would have told me. Like, I wish you would have given me a heads up.
Right. And now we have the ability to share, right? Through podcasts, through social media. Now that ability to share is there and people actually can see what they're getting into before they get into it. But people like you and I, we got in, right? And then I think like you and I, we have a fear of getting out because maybe cultural beliefs and values and our parents. I know I was terrified to get out even though I had a teacher who told me you should get out. In the first year of dental school, I'm like, that's not really an option for me. I have to keep going if you know my parents. So, walk me through your journey once you graduated. Like how was, I mean, it sounds like you were working 6 days a week, but what else? What kind of how do you reflect back on that time and how has it guided you to where you are currently right now?
You know, working, yeah, 6 days a week. I was an associate, and I was in multiple practices. And part of that was just because in the beginning I was only in one practice. And then after I got let go because they weren't busy enough, I kind of realized very quickly, like, I have to kind of diversify or at least, you know, keep not put all my eggs in one basket because at the end of the day, the real world is dentistry is a business, a practice owner is a business owner. They're going to make the best decision for their business. And I couldn't hold that against anybody because that's just how the
Right.
world works. And so I looked at it like, cool, I need to skill up in some way, shape, or form because if I don't skill up, then I will be dispensable. And so the first thing I started to work on were like the basics. So like patient communication and just getting more efficient at the procedures that I was doing. So I started to, learn different skills and just try to put myself in practices where I could use them. So when I worked in like a Medicaid office, that's a high volume situation. You're not getting compensated that much, but I looked at it as like a way to actually practice at a high capacity. And then I made a promise to myself that I will keep my standard of care high because I knew what I wanted out of that. I just wanted reps essentially, and I got that. But then that led to burnout because, 8 to 10 months later, you're doing high volume dentistry. It took a toll on me. And so these are kind of like the scars that came along the way. But again, I'm grateful for it because I wasn't going to get that in a brand new, practice where there's barely any patients coming in. So every practice that I went into, I always had something that I wanted to get out of it. And now looking back, I worked I've worked in a total of 11 different practices. Yeah, 8 in the first 2 years, so a lot. And and I look back and I look at it as I've seen 11 different ways to practice dentistry because every office had a different way of doing things. Some of them have onboarding procedures, some of them don't. Some of them have morning huddles and structures, some of them don't. And it was just in the moment, it sucked because I was just like, in the offices where there was no onboarding, I'm like, I literally start my first day and there's a day full of patients and they're like, here's your assistant, go. And I'm like, I don't even know my login. How do I pull up x-rays? Like, what do I even do? So yeah, it was a lot of that. But I look back at it now and since I have that perspective, it actually gave me the confidence to be able to help colleagues because I got to see like, cool, nobody has it figured out. Everybody is still working on it. Got to a point in 2020, realized I was actually burnt out, right? Of all these just kind
That
of
was
from the bread
quick,
and butter.
right?
Yeah, very, very quick, very quick.
Yeah.
And I was like, what did I get myself into here? That's when I decided that, I needed to invest in myself and potentially learn, another procedure. I thought another procedure was the answer. And so I learned, or at that point, we moved down to Austin. I was working for a DSO. We, and I got exposed to implants and clear aligners. And I had success with both, but with clear aligners, it was just different, and this is where it started to kind of pour into that bucket of why I chose dentistry, which was time, money, and fulfillment. Because with the liners, there wasn't a lot of full on labor, so I had a lot more time, right, during my days. A lot of the work you're doing is, yes, patient communication, but also behind the computer. I was getting more money because it's a high ticket procedure. And then I had a sense of fulfillment because it's part of a transformation for a patient. And it's not as instant, right, as doing a crown or
A root
or or,
canal.
or a root canal, yes. But it was something that I saw an impact on because after the 8 months of treatment, not only are my patients' teeth in a healthier position, they are actually flossing. They're telling me things that they want to work on and improve. So it was just a whole shift in how I was treating patients. And so I'm the oldest of three. I've got two younger siblings, and I am the older brother that has always wanted to give advice. And neither one of them ever wanted to take it. So that was always something that I had to like bottle up. And my therapist also had to tell me like, hey, just be like, there's other ways to communicate with your siblings other than giving them advice, and like that's totally fine. So all this stuff kind of weaves into then where I was like, cool, in dentistry, this is a procedure that's giving me all this. I want to, like, why aren't more people doing it? And it's because that entry level education just didn't exist. And so that's what I worked on. And so started teaching dentists in the group that I was at. That then led to me posting online on social media. That led to me having a course. And then I was doing that on the side while able to kind of work a couple days a week. And that's where I kind of felt the next level of passion evolve, where it was like, yes, I enjoy practicing dentistry, but this whole concept of, making an impact across the globe at that point and just feeling where the pull was, and it was very clear which direction I needed to go down. And so that's when I kind of went down this direction of stepping away from the chair to focus on this because I just saw that nobody else is really working on solving this problem. Um, and I just felt that I'm the person like kind of called to do that.
I wanna unpack that a little bit because I think this is the part where people maybe skip over because I noticed you say, like, you felt this pull, right? And I just wanna tell you, like, I'm with you. I had 9 jobs in my first 2 years of being a general dentist. So, I totally understand. And then I'm hearing because 'cause I'm very similar story to mine in that I decreased my number of days at the office, and then I started to get, like, invigorated with having this impact that was outside of the operatory, helping people beyond the practice, but I can't help but really connect with you on what you said is like, I was literally pulled. I can't even explain it. It was just like a magnet was like pulling me to do this thing. And I want you to just kind of talk on that feeling because I feel like that feeling is what people don't pay attention to. And that's like your intuition guiding you. And that's really where I want to spend a little time.
Yeah, no, I'm all for it to sit in this. So I'm gonna connect two dots. So I think so you know the Sunday Scaries, right?
Yeah, 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 for sure.
Right?
Yep.
So I used to get the Sunday Scaries pretty frequently when I was
Hmm.
practicing. And I'm just like, oh, this is normal. Everybody gets the Sunday Scaries. Um, the Sunday Scaries went away when I had this on the side. So when I was practicing 4 days a week and I had the education platform, right, that I was working on in my free time, I never got the Sunday Scaries. And that's where I knew I was in alignment of everything. And then fast forward about a year and a half in, when I was down to 2 clinical days, because what happened is I was, 4 clinical days, and then I was using the rest of my time to work to build this, make content, support doctors in the course and all that stuff. And then slowly I cut the days down because there started to be more work, more opportunity on the education side. And then I got down to that point where it was 2 clinical days, and the rest of my time was on, the online business. And then I was doing that for 8 months, and then I woke up one Sunday and I got the Sunday Scaries, and I'm like, "Whoa, what's going on?" Like, I haven't felt this way because I was one Monday, Tuesday, I was in the clinic, and then the rest of the week the rest of the week I was doing the online. I was like, "What? This is kinda weird." And so the first time I had it, I kinda shook it off, but then I would go into the practice, and let's say a patient canceled or there was, like, some free time during the day. I would be, like, pulling my hair out because I had this itch, and it was so clear that I just wanted to work on this other business, and I didn't want to be in the practice, and that is where a lot of this, like, pull started to come from. Because then I started to feel frustrated, and it was the first time that I felt frustrated with clinical dentistry in a long time, and then when it happened for 2 Sundays in a row, that's where I spoke up and I told my wife, I was just like, "I need I think I need to commit to this and go full on because this doesn't feel right." Like, me not working on this, it doesn't feel like this is what I'm supposed to do. And this may sound extreme to some people who are listening, but, like, I genuinely believe, and because I've lived both sides, Sunday scaries, it just means that you're probably not in alignment with what you should be doing. Because if you truly are working on something and building something that you are passionate about, you're not going to have the Sunday scaries. And I know because I've felt both. And the second I went full time with this, I literally have not had the Sunday scaries once.
That's important. I don't think it's, like, too strong, but I think it's important, and if Sunday scaries keep coming up, that's the universe kinda saying, "Hey, pay attention, and pay attention to that feeling in your body, and what does that mean?" I think that's really important.
I think it's a marker, and I do think that, yeah, like, again, we haven't even talked about the fact, like, I've done a lot of self work along the way, right? So, like, I've been in therapy, journaled, meditated, prioritized my mental health, physical health, all that. So it's been a journey, and so I think that's where it's kind of like you almost kind of like, you're cleaning out the basement, and then when you have a clean basement and you know it's clean, you know, at that point, if something is down there that doesn't belong, you can feel it instantly, and you know that, okay, this is out of place. It shouldn't be here. I think like a lot of like there are steps people can take to probably eliminate that surface level Sunday scaries. I'm not saying like stop, quit your job and go do something else. I think that there's a lot of steps, but I do think it's a marker telling you, the universe is telling you, hey, you need to, whatever you're doing right now, something needs to change. And then I think it's on you to figure out what that looks like and what needs to change.
Yeah, and you don't have to stop dentisting right away. You just need to test and explore and dabble a little bit and see what brings joy back into your life. I think that's something that where a lot of us are missing. And so I say pay attention to the cues in your body, and that is what helps guide you. Once I started to do that, I realized like my body couldn't take 5 days of dentistry anymore. Couldn't, and then I went down to 4, and then my body couldn't take that, and then 3, and then 2, and now I go between 1 and 2, but now I'm like, "I think my body can only take 1 now." It's intense. It's very intense for me, and eventually I think I'll have to, you know, opt completely out one day. I don't think that day is too far, believe it or not, but I when we chatted last and I asked you, would you ever go back to clinical dentistry? I really loved your response, so I'd love for you to give it again.
I mean, the short answer is no. I don't think I would, and I think it's because of the growth that's come from me going on this journey. There is a bigger, impact to be had, but also in my own progression. Like, I think for me, and I'm not saying like, "Oh, I've outgrown dentistry," but I think what's happened is because I've taken the risks and, gone down this path of unknown, but then kind of realized that like, oh, like there is still everything is okay, right? Like going from practicing to not practicing, like everything is okay. Like I may not be making as much as I was when I was clinically practicing. I think that's something that a lot of people don't necessarily realize, but in terms of just how I feel like on a day-to-day basis and like kind of the freedom that's coming with what I'm doing, I think it all is going into that bucket of time, money, and fulfillment. And I forget exactly what I told you.
It's like it would be a disservice to you and like your path, and I was like, "Wow, that's really powerful." Because I think a lot of times fear holds people back from taking the first action step or really letting go. I can say that for myself. Like I have 3 children. I don't want to fully let go, but I love being an educator. But being a full-time educator, oh, I'm not ready yet, and but I do think that that day is coming, you know?
Well, and that's what I've seen is like when you are fully committed and call it off the deep end, whatever you want to say, I think what it does is it puts you in a totally different mindset. When problems arise, when this is what you do, I think you just channel so much more to it to solve it because you're not just solving it as a nice to have or as like like an extra thing because that can wane, right? But like when it's what you do, I think you just approach it totally differently and you come up with solutions that somebody that's doing it part-time is just not going to come up with. And I think, some people they'll ask me like, "Oh, like, are you ever worried about like competition? Like what if somebody else just comes and like teaches dentists how to do this?" I'm like, "Great. Like that's awesome." I think not enough people are doing it because I by no means know everything about, the procedure and what can be done. And I openly say that. And I think, but what I do know is I do know how to help doctors start and I know how to do it in a way that is true to me. And so the people who I can help are going to resonate with me and my messaging. And if they don't resonate with that, that's totally fine because there's other people for them. But yeah, back to that. I remember what I said now about the disservice. It's like seeing not only how it makes me feel, but also the number of people that I've been able to help. And I look around, it's like, this is what I'm supposed to do. Like, this is how I'm supposed to show up. And for me, it's like, there's a lot of unknown, but at the same time, I'm not too worried about it because it's like, I know that I'll figure it out. And I think it's like a muscle when you take different risks in life. And then there's like, you're creating a new feedback loop. And I think a lot of dentists, we are afraid of the unknown. Most people are, but dentists especially, right? We've invested so much time, so much money, all of this stuff, and I think dentists and non-dentists that are listening, like I truly believe that you know we are all put on this we are all put on this earth to do more than just one thing, and like I know that this won't be the only thing I do for the rest of my life, but for this season, that's what I'm doing.
Yeah, exactly. Like, look, I'm starting a podcast. Like, who knew? It definitely was not in my vision like 7 years ago when I started this path, and even like teaching, being an educator was not in my path in the beginning. So I love.
And to your point, when we talked at the event at Del Noches, I remember like I mean we had a lot of very deep conversations very quickly. But I remember one of them was like, yeah, you were going through like a transition period, and I think you were trying to get clarity on navigating it. And I think I look at you now doing this podcast as like, yeah, you should be doing this because you should be having these types of conversations with people because I know that is a part of you that lights you up, and I've seen that. And so the fact that you're doing it, I just think it is in very much alignment with who you are today and who you are, also becoming. And so it's totally okay. And like you said, you didn't even have a vision.
It's so crazy to go through the whole process again. Like, I remember first coming onto the scene about being an endodontic educator, realizing like I look nothing like the endodontic educators out there. I'm no Cliff Ruddle, I'm no Jen West, I'm no Steve Buchanan, but here I am. And for those of you who are not dentists, those are really big root canal guy names. And I'm like, I'm just like not a white dude teaching root canals. I am this younger Indian woman trying to like make my space. And there was so much imposter syndrome that went along with that. And now I'm in a new space going through the same imposter syndrome again, where, now podcasts, had I done it 16 years ago, podcasting was not everybody had one. Now everybody has one. So it's like, okay, well, who wants to listen to this? And so it's like a whole new imposter syndrome coming alive again. And I'm like, holy shit, I thought I was over this. And it's just like, that's just part of the growth. And it's like, okay, I've been through this before. We can do it again. Just jump, like it's time to just jump. And that's it. And I love it. And I love I feel like we share the same mindset, and I love that you really don't see competition. I see it as collaboration whenever possible, and it's a shared mission, right? There's so many people to teach. If we do need people to help us, like we can't do it alone. Dentistry needs a lot of help, if you ask me, especially in the education department. And we should really rethink how dental education is working. And maybe one day we'll be in the White House making moves. Who knows? I don't know. Lots of things to
Yep.
vision about,
We,
but
we, we can put that out there.
we can, and just make it better because that just helps the world. But yet, I remember listening to one of your webinars, and I thought it was interesting. I want to talk about it because I really want to know a little bit more details on being an Uber Eats driver. Can you take me back to that part of your life?
During the pandemic, when everything was shut down, right? I got let go from both of my jobs because I was an associate, and so in the beginning it was like, hey, we're taking a pause. But then since the shutdown in Connecticut happened for a little bit longer, I got let go, and then I was like, okay, well, no one is hiring because the country's shut down. So like, what am I gonna do? And so the first couple weeks, I was like, okay, I'm sure it'll be fine. Like, something will come up. I literally was like playing Xbox. And which is funny because when I tell people that today, they're just like, "You play Xbox?" I'm like, I played a lot of Xbox. Huge NFL fan, but anyways, I'm doing this, and Neha, my wife, she's still working, VP of finance for a tech company, so she's remote, and so she didn't stop. So she's working full time, and I'm just sitting there on the couch. And yeah, and then at that point, it was kind of like, all right, I need to do something because like nothing is just. It was very clear, like there was no handout, nobody was coming to save me. And yeah, and then I was like, you know what? I think I'm gonna be an Uber Eats driver. And then I was kind of like, what? Like, what do you mean? And I'm like, she's like, you're a dentist. I'm like, yeah, I know, but like, I we have to. I have to make some type of money. Like, this
Was it
isn't.
money, or you just felt like you had to do something?
It was a mix of both. It was a mix of both. I think I wanted to feel useful. I think that had kind of weighed on me, but and then I mean, yeah, honestly, like I think as a kid, I think there was a part of me, like the inner child, like just thought that like being like a delivery driver would be like cool. Um, I don't know why, but it was because my life was very much like not expedited, but I had a job in high school and I'd work a little bit. I worked at Abercrombie.
Oh, me too. Look at us. We're like twins.
Oh, that's crazy. So, wow, that's awesome. I'm glad I shared that so we could make that connection. So yeah, I worked at Abercrombie and then I went to undergrad and I finished undergrad in 3 years. So didn't have a job there, went straight to dental school. Right after dental school, went straight to being a dentist. So I never had that like job. I mean, I kind of did, but I didn't. Whatever. Clearly, it was an unmet need because then the next time I'm unemployed, like I was like, oh, maybe I could be a barista. Like maybe I could just go get a job at Starbucks or something. But Uber driver or Uber Eats driver came up, and yeah, I like went through the process. I became an Uber Eats driver, um, and
What
I
was
just
the pay
started.
like?
It wasn't that great. Honestly, you're driving, but it was funny because I started to like figure out where I started to pick up. Like this is where I was like definitely overqualified for the position because I would like in the beginning I would just take whatever popped up on the screen. And it was kind of cool. It's like, oh, like, someone needs a thing, like you click it, it tells you how much you can get paid, like 8 or 10 bucks a run. And I'm like, oh, cool. Like, I'll just do that. And you do it. You go pick it up. You drop it off. And then there would be some neighborhoods where it would go up, and I'd get like 20 bucks, like 20 bucks
Oh,
a delivery. And I'm like, ooh, this is pretty good. Um, and then I also learned that like there's distance. Like, I don't know what the math was behind it, but like then there'd be some where I'd see like a big number, and then I would take it, and I wouldn't see where I had to drive. And like I'm driving for like 25 minutes, and then I'm like, how the heck am I going to get back? Like I have to go back home. So that I was like waiting for these like routes to take me back to the house. Yeah, it was a whole thing. But yeah, I did it.
I think I
It
might
wasn't like it.
sit on my ass.
Yeah, most people would. I think most people would, but to me, like it didn't. I don't know. It didn't really bother me. I think I did it as a way. Yeah, I think it was wanting to do something with my time because at that point I was like, I can't even learn anything. In the beginning, I did like Spear Online. I was like learning. I was like, yeah, I'll just get better at procedures. And then like a couple weeks go by, and it's like, when am I gonna actually implement any of this stuff? So that was the Uber Eats story.
And that all happened before you decided to do the online thing, right?
Correct.
Okay.
This was back in 2020. Um, and then things started to open up. I was working in a practice up in Connecticut. But then we quickly made the decision to make the move down to Austin. Just use it as an opportunity to reset. But yeah.
Nice. Well, I'm glad that Uber Eats was short-lived because I see you building a brand in dentistry online, and I think your voice is powerful, and I think it's necessary. And can you tell me, I think building a brand in dentistry, even if you're continuing to dentist, I think it's very important. I think more people need to understand what we do, why we do it, and that we're actual humans. So I think building a brand in dentistry is really important. Can you kind of share your experience in building your brand online and kind of putting yourself out there?
So in the beginning, I never actually understood brand. Like I would hear about it, people would share about it. I would I try I just it was something I could never really wrap my head around because when I think brand, like I'm thinking, right, big brands, Nike, Adidas, that kind of stuff. And I'm just like, what do you mean a personal brand? When I was doing a lot of self work in therapy regularly, working on myself to just with the goal of being a better person and a better husband. Those were the two things that led to me learning more about myself. And as I learned more about myself, I started to become more comfortable with myself. I think it's a process. I think if you just put yourself out there on social media, it's terrifying, but it's terrifying to most people because most people are not actually comfortable in their own skin. And I was one of those people. Like my Instagram feed used to be picture like I never posted a picture by myself. Every picture that if I ever posted back in the day, Neha would always be in there. I felt weird posting a picture of just me. which is comical now because if you go to my page, all it is my face. But like I had these thoughts. I felt self-conscious about just posting about me. Like, oh, what would that say about me? Like, oh, is that like narcissistic? Blah blah blah. Like, I feel like it should be other people should be in there. But basically, as I was going through that process, getting more comfortable with myself, I knew that I needed to like develop this skill of just communicating and like basically recording a video and posting it. So I challenged myself in 2022 that that I would make a video every single day in the morning for the entire year, and I did it. So I did it at 5 a.m. every day in my robe, and I would just put a video of whatever was on my mind. So I try to make it like motivational, positive, just something. And so what that did, and so the what also triggered this partially in the beginning was my dad was like, "Hey, so I see your videos that you're putting out there," and he's like, "You're really monotone." And I'm like, "Geez, Dad, thanks." He's like, "It could be a little more engaging if you use some inflection and all that." And I'm like, dude, this is like not easy. But then like I took that feedback. I'm like, all right, like this is what I'll work on. And that's when I learned the nuances. Like when you're on camera, you have to bring more energy than what is normal just to come across as like normal. And so all these little things, but I built this muscle of just basically taking messy action. And while I was posting every single day with this like robe content, I was also posting like tips about clear aligners. So I was doing the trends like, trending audio and pointing on the screen and the dances and stuff. And I was doing all of this in a very messy way. Like there was no brand color, there was no brand font, there was none of that. And I think my brand just started to be authentic because that was the advice that I got from people. I would ask people who had a lot of followers and I would say, "Hey, what's the secret? How do you grow?" All that. And they're like, "You just got to be yourself." Everybody would say it. And it would be so frustrating because I was like, what the heck does that mean? And it's crazy though, because what people I think overcomplicate it, and it is just building your own brand is about consistently being you. That's kind of how I distill it, and that was the mindset that I took on. So when I post on my stories, like I don't think twice. If I want to post it, I post it. If I'm posting on my feed, if it's going to get messy, it gets messy. Like it doesn't matter. That was just my angle that I took, and I think that resonated with a lot of people because then as I got more comfortable posting and of myself and not worrying about the perfect post, I was able to just do it at a higher volume. And I was also able to do it consistently because if I'm just consistently me, that is way more sustainable than trying to post as something that is curated, right? And then that led to me getting more comfortable sharing my thoughts on the industry, my mindset about things. And then that is when my page started to pick up steam because I would say stuff that 99% of dentists wouldn't say, but that everybody's thinking. And then that became part of my brand. And so again, though, those are thoughts that I had because I'm still the dentist that had those 11 associateships. So I saw all those things. And so I was just sharing me. And then I think I was pleasantly surprised by how that resonated. I think we all underestimate how similar we are. On this podcast right now, me and you just found a couple new connection points, and we already had some before this. So it's like, it's just, I do think, yeah, certain people have more things in common, but a lot of us are all in really similar boats. And some people are just, I think, hiding from it, where other people lean in. And I think the people who lean in are the ones who ultimately, they ultimately win because you're able to enjoy life more opportunities come your way. You just have a better feeling about the life that you're living. And I think, yeah, that's my take.
You hit the nail on the head because you said you enjoy life more. And that's what we need to be doing more of. You're living more in alignment. I mean, joy and alignment seems to be like the theme here on this podcast, and really finding and connecting with the joy. And then another theme that I see keep coming up, and I've only done 2 episodes, okay, is that when you start, things just show up. And so if you can just take that first step and just let the universe guide you, the next little breadcrumb will show up and you just keep following that. if you keep paying attention to those Sunday scaries and all the things. So it's funny because you mentioned your dad. And was his feedback that you were too stiff or monotone? Was that because he was like, my son stopped dentisting? Or like, was there, how did your parents feel when you told them you weren't going to practice anymore?
So my relationship with my parents has increased tenfold, um, because I'm actually sharing the things that I'm doing and working on. I'm sure that, I mean, there's a lot to it. Again, like I said, I did a lot of self work, but yeah, like my bond strengthened with them. So when I told them that I was going to do this full time, they trusted me. They were just like, if you think that this is what you need to do, and if you feel like this is the way, go for it. And then, because both of them were just like, if this doesn't work out, which is what I told them, I was like, guys, if this doesn't work out, I'll just be a dentist again. It's not like the end of the world. Like, I'll
Right.
keep
You
my
still
license
you
active.
still had a backup plan, which is not a bad
Yeah,
one, right?
exactly. So I was like, I think it's kind of like I saw an opportunity and I was like, if there's a time to do it, it's now. And if it doesn't work out, like, it's okay. But like, if it does, like, I also know I'm gonna do everything I can in my power to make sure it doesn't not work out. And so, yeah, I think when they heard, they were very supportive, and yeah, their belief, it's not even like I needed their approval, but hearing it definitely also helped, and it was part of this whole concept of when you're in alignment and you're the people who you think may be restrictive actually may not, and then when you actually hear those supportive words, like, it pushes you even further.
I feel like because I was married and had my children already, my parents didn't care what else I did. I did the dental school, I got the boy, I had the kids, gave them their grandkids. So if I want to do this side hustle, no problem, have at it, right? So I wonder if it would have been different if their tune would have been different had it happened earlier in my life, right? Who knows? Who knows? But now,
Maybe.
yeah, they're just happy that they don't have to pay for their children anymore, They did it, they succeeded in their mind, that is success, right? Both of their kids married off, one's a doctor, one's a dentist. They succeeded. So this is beautiful. I mean, I love how much emphasis you put on personal growth and development. I think that that's one thing that's missing in the dental school education. I think that that's when we put that time and energy in ourselves, we can actually be better healers, in my opinion, and we can help our patients more. I'm going to ask you one thing. If you could reflect back to your younger self, what is one insight you would share with him and why?
The one insight I would share with my younger self, I would say don't be afraid to be you. Because I think growing up, I was I look back and I was always the person that was kind of chameleoning to the group. And, part of it, I know we didn't necessarily get into it, but like in high school, I was the darkest kid in school. So I wasn't, there wasn't a lot of other, brown kids there. And so I realized I had this like alter ego or this other, reality that I was living in. And I was doing a lot of things to fit in. And that translated to then me even in college wanting to fit in, even in dental school wanting to fit in. And this all kind of comes full circle, right? Where it's like when I actually learned how to get comfortable with myself and learned who I was, my life changed. And so if I could go back, I would say, man, what if I just got more comfortable? Like, what would my life look like if I just was me earlier? So I would tell my younger self, like, don't be afraid to be you.
That's beautiful. And that's how we build our worth. And if we can do that, everything just kind of falls into place. I love that. Thank you. Well, tell our people where we can find you and what's the best way to connect with you.
Yeah, easiest way I would say probably Instagram. My handle is Dr. Avi. If you're not on Instagram, I'm pretty much on all social media, LinkedIn, YouTube, but Instagram is my preference. So that's where I'm at.
Well, thanks so much for joining us today. It's been a pleasure. You are just you just speak truth and I love it, and you're like a true brother to me. So, thanks for coming into my life.
Thank you for having me. Super, super excited for you and this next chapter. Always rooting for you.
Thank you. I'll see you next time.